created specifically to hold an extremely high level of consciousness within a body. It was a divine experiment, if you want, and not just by extraterrestrials. We are talking also the divine creative forces involved here. We were created as a race called the Taurinaceans. The Taurinacean race were like the crown jewel in the interstellar races. The best of the interstellar races gene coding was taken and combined into a package, a DNA package, called the silicate matrix. It was a 12-strand DNA package. With that package, the abilities that we would think only gods could possess were ours at one time. The body was immortal. It did not die. We had powers of telekinesis, thought transference, demanifestation if we chose, all those powers that seem completely unbelievable to us here. They were once ours. And this is very special for us to know, because even though the silicate matrix is not activated within our bodies and our gene code right now, it is still a dormant gene configuration. Every one of us in this room has a part of the silicate matrix. Some of us have all of it. And those who do have any of it can begin activation of the silicate matrix, to begin bringing back to us what was once ours and what was taken away from us. Now, I say taken away from us because in many ways that's precisely what was done. There are many events in Terran history on the planet Terra that involve conflicts with different planetary systems, such as the Sirius star system and sometimes with the Palladian star system. There are beings in Harmonic Universe 2 in those star systems. We can send our probes out to these star systems in Harmonic Universe 1 and we will see nothing. But if we knew how to jump the interdimensional scale and do it in the frequency bands of Harmonic Universe 2, we would really find out how not alone in the universe we are. They know about us, we just don't know about them right now. And part of what is being done in this time period is bringing this knowledge back to us so we can have a clue as to what we're really dealing with in our evolution, because it's becoming very important for our survival and we start to understand. So, for a moment, just think about what it might mean. You didn't come out of apes, you didn't come out of the early man, they actually came out of us. They were experiments with combining what we were with animal forms. What does that mean to each one of you? That once upon a time, you were actually part of a race, and you still are, that had immortality, that had a true connection to the divine, where consciousness could span galaxies and knowledge was huge compared to what is available to us here. It means that each one of you have a potential to reach back and reclaim that inside of you. And there is a process, a specific process that can be used to do this. And it's called activating the silicate matrix. We will do that. Now, in the workshop that I'm going to be giving after here, we will get into the silicate matrix and we will get into the structure of the gene code and multidimensional identity and how you can begin integrating the higher dimensional aspects of your consciousness, which will begin to create transmutation in your body forms so that you will begin to become what your imprint holds as your potential. But for now, I would rather cover some of the history and what has happened here, because we are at a point, a crossroads, a juncture in time, that if we don't understand what's taking place here, this gift, this hidden gift that we have carried for eons, we will not be able to use, maybe ever again. So it's very important that we pay attention and we learn and we understand where the things we've been taught to believe have come from. Now, our race was seated here originally not because it was a plan to do so. It was a rescue mission. On the planet Terra, 550 million years ago, there was a cataclysm, and it was brought on by corruption within certain strains of the Taurinacean race. These stories have been encoded within our biblical texts as a fall of man and all sorts of different mythological representations. But there was a cataclysm, and it ended up creating a situation where in order for the beings involved in that cataclysm, whose identities became fragmented within the multidimensional fields, they lost their structure of the Taurinacean form. It's like being blown apart, not just your body, your consciousness too. They had to be reassembled so they could re-evolve back into what they once were. There was a plan called the Amente Rescue Mission. The word Amente comes from Terra. It's a part of Terra associated with a continent called Mu that was also on Terra. The Amente Rescue Mission began 550 million years ago, and we are part of that rescue mission. We are a stage in that rescue mission. The rescue mission involved seeding various root races and cloister races, which were races that held higher gene codes that would keep that potential alive within the genetic base here. And these races had to be seeded 3 different times. We are the 3rd seeding because twice it didn't work. Twice there were cataclysms here that made it have to start all over again. And this can happen again. We're going to have to start all over again. And they don't know if they will do what is necessary to have that happen again, because it's been so hard to get us to evolve this high. That's why they're intervening now. All right? Now, all of our, what we consider our ancient history, which is really recent history when you're comparing it to 550 million years ago, there's a lot of pieces of this knowledge hidden in different places, in different religious systems and spiritual perspectives. There are secrets. This is why one of my books is called Secrets of Amente. These are the secrets of how we got here, why we're here, and if we know why we're here, we know where we're going. There's an evolutionary blueprint we were intended to fulfill, but we don't know it here anymore. The Secrets of Amente have held that as a secret, hidden truth of the human lineage for a very long time, and those secrets are being revealed now. In order to create the Amente rescue mission, a thing called the sphere of Mente was created. It is a morphogenetic field, a blueprint, a pattern for matter manifestation. Now everybody has their personal blueprint upon which their body and their consciousness manifests. This was a large-scale blueprint, a race blueprint, that would allow the original 12-strand gene code to be entered here onto Earth in Harmonic Universe 1 and slowly put itself back together through the evolution of the root races. That is what we are part of, whether we know it or not. That is what our existence on the planet is about right now. When the sphere of Mente was created, there were forces within the higher universes that liked the plan, and there were those that didn't. There were battles fought, 2 major ones. One was the Electric Wars, and there was another called the Thousand Years' War, that were fought over whether or not we could even have the chance to evolve here. And the ones that liked us won. The Guardian Alliance is part of that organization. Because there was so much chance of this mission being raided and destroyed by the other forces that did not want us to evolve here, there was something called the Ark of the Covenant that was created in order to protect the sphere of Amente blueprint. Now, if you can visualize the sphere of Mente, imagine a spherical form of energy. It's made of crystals. Think of crystal clusters, but really fine energy particles. Crystalline light, because that is what it looks like if you were to see it. It was a thing, a construct of energy. It just like your body is a construct of energy. So we're not talking about a hypothetical thing. We're talking about a real item. Well, this item had to be put someplace to keep it out of range of being destroyed by the forces that wanted it to be destroyed. The Ark of the Covenant was originally called the Arch of the Covenant of Paleodor. The Paladorians were the group on Tara, the group of Taurinicians that survived, that created the Amente rescue mission. When we speak of the Ark of the Covenant here, we think of maybe Indiana Jones, and some of us realize there's a holy significance to it. That it has something to do with a covenant with God. Well, yes, it does, but it was also a covenant with the Paladorians, who were going to help us evolve back to the point where we could continue our higher evolution into God realization. So we now have the Sphere of Mente and the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is a time portal passage bridge between the Earth's core and the Andromeda Galaxy. There's a certain planet that will not be revealed in which the Sphere of Amente was stored all of these years in order to keep it out of range of the Harmonic Universe 2 forces that wanted to destroy it. Now, this was good, but it also created problems, because for us to evolve and for us to be able to go back through to Tara and leave Harmonic Universe 1 and go back into the higher bodies and the immortal bodies, we need to pass through the Sphere of Amente. It works itself as a portal gate. In order to do this, the Sphere of Amente has to be at Earth's core. So it left a challenge here. It could be protected, our race evolution could be protected. But in order to allow us to fully evolve, it had to come back into the Earth's core. And the portals between Earth and Terra had to open so full bodily ascension could occur. And ascension is simple. It's going up. You're simply going up the dimensional scale by raising the particle pulsation rhythm of your body's particles. That's all ascension really is. And it's a holy concept because that's what spiritual evolution is. And as you do this, you pull in more at one-ment with your source. So that it is a scientific concept and it is a religious concept all in one. There is no difference in truth between science and religion. So there was something associated with the Ark of the Covenant and the Sphere of Amente. It was called the Halls of Amente. The Halls of Amente are time portal passages that operate through the Sphere of Mente that open directly from Earth into the physical matter body of Terra. They're the slider portals. Just like in the slider series, you can be here, and if you have the right coding in your body through the gene code, if enough of the silicate matrix is activated in your gene code, you can go through, and you can end up on planet Terra, which, compared to here, would represent future time, because time, linear time, is really an illusion. Time is simultaneous in nature, and it represents stations of particle pulsation. That may be a little hard to understand, and we can get into that in workshops and seminars. But just understand that in Harmonic Universe 1, that would represent past to Harmonic Universe 2, which is a higher vibrational system. So if we move through a portal here into Harmonic Universe 2, we are going to our future. We're also going back to our past. And this is the secret of time that many people here, and the scientists here, have really not figured out much at all, except for a few associated with the Montauk Project, but I won't get into that. We're preparing for a monumental event. It's been over 200,000 years since the Sphere of Amente has been at Earth's core, and since the Halls of Amente would really be fully opened, where the masses had the opportunity for ascension. All through our development here, there have been religious teachings and mystical schools, little clusters of humans. There's certain ET races or certain of the guardian human races chose as their chosen ones, where they would give certain teachings that would allow them as individuals to participate in ascension. During Pharaoh Akhenaten's period in ancient Egypt, they conducted ascensions there through the Ark of the Covenant, because the Sphere of Mente was not at its core, but they could do it using certain energy dynamics and take them through the Ark of the Covenant itself and then through the Halls of Amente. There was a major disaster that happened with that in Akhenaten's period, and because of that, the Christ period had to take place. Now there's a lot of energy around the concept of Christ, Jesus Christ, whatever you want to call that embodiment of our hope, because that is really what that personage symbolizes to us. There are hidden parts of the story of Jesus Christ. They are all completely connected to the Amente plan and to our evolution. They were actually, within the story that we have received of who Christ was, there are three people interwoven into that story. The stories we read in our Bible are actually about three different people that got consolidated into one person. They were all good, and they all served their purpose within the ascension practice and getting the race ready to evolve into ascension. But there were three Christs, they call them. The first, I believe he was born in 12 BC? Yeah, 12 BC. He was called, quite simply, Jesuit 12. He was a 12th level avatar. Now, in the workshops, we'll get into what an avatar level consciousness is compared to other things. It meant that he carried 12-dimensional frequency bands of consciousness within his body, awake and alive, which meant he had a fully activated silicate matrix. Jesuit 12 came here in incarnation physically because through his consciousness and through his soul essence passing through the Sphere of Amente into fetal integration here, it put back the imprint for the 12-strand DNA into our race morphogenetic field. Because through ET manipulations that had gone down during the early seedings, that was not even a potential for us anymore. We had gone into a digression that had to be corrected. And the Akhenaten period had a lot to do with that also. So Jeshua 12 came in order to re-imprint the 12-strand silicate matrix. He was not just a savior for the Christian people. He gave it back to all of us. There was another person who was sent here by another group of beings from the higher councils. He became known as Jeshua 9. He was the 9th level avatar. He is the one, when you see the pictures and the representations of Jesus Christ, it's his face that most resembles that one. Like Jeshua 9 looked different than Jeshua 12. Jeshua 12 was very notable because he always wore his hair in braids. And I will tell you this, that I know this because I remember, because I had an incarnation in that period. And I was shown these things. And the story that I'm telling you of the Christ is very true. One of the things that's very important to understand, we can realize how the Christ drama has affected us, both pro and con, people who accepted it and people who haven't. This has been a formative thing in our society, in our belief systems. We have structured our whole societal format on biblical things or things that are in the other various religious texts. There are distortions that have been passed down on this story. First, we've been told that it was only one. Secondly, we've been told there were no genetic lines left behind. There were. Both of them left genetic lines. And some of us in this room may be part of those genetic lines. And the big one, the big distortion, that was done on purpose to create a condition of martyrdom within our consciousness. So we would think it was okay to really abuse ourselves and to really look at ourselves as lowly, sinful, yucky creatures. We were told that the avatar was crucified. He wasn't. Neither of them were crucified. But Arahabi was. Arahabi was another man. He was from Jerusalem. And he was approached by the Elohim, who are a group of, some people here consider them angels. They're a group of higher evolution from the third harmonic universe. Arahabi was presented with a proposition. There was a lot of heat coming down on Jeshua 9 as far as his teachings. And he was creating a lot of political upheaval, and they had to get him out before he was, before they killed him and went after his genetic lines. He was exiled to the regions of what we know as France. But Arahabi took the fall for him. Now, he was granted ascension immediately, after the fact. But the whole story of man on the cross, it was not one of the Jeshuas. It was Arahabi. And it was meant, and it was used in a way after this. Yes, it got across the concept that you can be risen from the dead, and you can ascend. Because he did. Shroud of Turin belonged to him. But it was also used through remote extraterrestrial distortions by the guys that don't want us to evolve, to make us think that we're supposed to be like that. We're supposed to be martyrs. We're supposed to do like Jesus Christ did and let the universe walk all over us and really die and sacrifice and be miserable because God expects this. God does not expect this at all. God adores and honors his creatures, whatever they are. That's one program we need to override. Because when we override it, then we won't be too humble or too programmed into disliking ourselves to say, hey, I have a silicate matrix. I was a God being once. Yes, you were. Open your hearts to it, and you'll start to find it. All right, I'm not going to go too much more into the Jeshuas. There's more on those stories. But I wanted you to understand that extraterrestrial involvement here has been all through the whole development of our ideological systems in all cultures, from the Sumerians to the Egyptians to all of the cultures have been affected by this. There's a higher evolution that has been giving us these teachings for very specific reasons. Most of them were good, but then you would have other forces of higher evolution, not that high, but high enough to mess with us, that would come in and they would twist part of those teachings or take them away. So we wouldn't have the whole story, or we'd have the wrong story. Because there are certain forces that want to keep us under their thumb. They don't want us to evolve back to what we were, because we can't be manipulated when we're God beings. So they want us to stay as a nice little slave race here that they can run around and do things on Earth. We don't have to put up with that. Now the forces I'm talking about here are basically two. It's in the classic stories of the Bibles, the forces of dark and light, which most religious doctrines of all sorts will tell you exist. There's a manifestation of those concepts involved with the ETs that are involved with our history. There are groups called the guardian groups, which are the higher evolution that have helped us evolve and that will continue to help us evolve. And then there are the dark groups who decided they don't want the competition. They like to play their games with control of other planetary systems and other life forms. If we get out there and have more power than they are because we have higher gene codes when we're fully activated, then they're in for trouble. Then they have to answer to us. And they've messed with us for eons. So they're a little bit afraid of what happens if we actually grow up, or wake up, and reclaim our power. Because then they have to contend with us. This group that I'm speaking about is called the Illuminati. And it began in the Orion star system. The Illuminati is not just a group of Earth-based beings, but I will tell you, the Illuminati have been here since the beginning of the first seeding of this race, and they have tried to take the evolution of this race in their own direction over and over and over. If I went into explaining to you the manifestations of Illuminati systems that you walk around in right now, it would probably scare you a lot. And it would get me killed before I left the building. So I'm not going to go there, but I want you to be aware that in the books, we talk about the interior government, the secret government. There is a secret government. It's not just in the United States. It's an Illuminati-controlled force. It's a world management team that has played with governments for eons, manipulating and impulsing certain things to create societal structures the way they want them. The reason it's important to know about them right now is because there are things happening because of the time cycles we're in that allow the ascension portals to open. It's rallying all the forces. The guardian groups are coming here, but so are the Illuminati forces, not just the Earth ones, but the ones from the higher councils. They don't want to lose control of this place. They don't want the ascension cycles to happen. We are having an ascension cycle between the year 2000 and 2017. In 2012, the halls of Amente will open to those who can pass through them. And there are techniques that are going to be taught to prepare yourself for whatever level you are capable of achieving with that, either with the body or after you transition over in death. You can get out of Harmonic Universe 1 for the first time in several 100,000 years without having to go through many, many incarnations. They're trying to stop this process, and they're not going to win. They can't do it, but they can mess with us in the meantime. And that's what's been going on a lot. The real messing started in the early 50s with what a lot of people are familiar with, the concept of MJ12, the Majestic 12 group. We were visited by the Zeta Reticuli and a couple other groups, extraterrestrial groups from Harmonic 2, during the early 50s, because when the bomb was developed, we were becoming dangerous. And there was intervention offered on a very small and quiet scale to try to help us not destroy ourselves and other things in the universe. The governments involved in MJ12, which is the United States government, and a couple of others, refused to participate with the guardian groups who offered their help. Instead, they formed treaties with the Zeta. The Zeta had one interest in mind primarily, and that was, we need a planet to live on, because they exploded their own a very long time ago. Now, Zetas come from a lot of different places. There are Zetas in the Orion system, there are Zetas in the Palladian system, they're all over the place. The ones that came here were actually affiliated with a time period in Tara that's between our time period and the 6,520 period that the guardian groups are coming from. There was a period when takeover was orchestrated, and it worked there. So they're coming from our future time, trying to get control here because they're going to lose control of their future time because of the ascension cycle and because of the opening of the halls of Mente, and they wanted to stop this. And it's funny, the Illuminati here, the interior government people and all that, they have not a clue why the Zeta were really here. Oh, the poor races are dying, they have to make hybrids so they can survive. This was a whole line of nonsense. Part of it was true. They do need hybrids, yes. And they can't survive in an Earth environment. The carbons are too strong here. So of course they're going to take over, of course they need new bodies. And they have been doing hybridization programs. Our governments have allowed this to happen. They have knowingly signed treaties that said, Yes, you can pick up whatever ones you want, as long as you put them back, and try not to hurt them, but they can't remember. They have the technologies. They use keylontic science technologies to erase whatever memory they want. And that's where you're getting the alien abduction phenomenon. People are starting to get pieces of those memories coming back. This is something that is going on. And whether we choose to believe in it or not is up to us. But it is very, very real. And it's not the biggest challenge that's facing us right now. We're being faced with a celebration and also a major challenge. The ET problem is the small issue. The real issue is the fact that the halls of Amente are opening. We are going into something called an ascension cycle. An ascension cycle is a biophysical phenomenon for the planetary particles. It's a physics issue. What happens in an acceleration cycle is the rhythm that particles, the molecules, pulsate after normal rhythm within a three-dimensional system within harmonic universe 1 begins to increase, and they begin to pulsate faster. What this creates for us is a literal biophysical time acceleration. It accelerates the movement of time because time is very tied into particle pulsation rhythm, which I won't get into here because it's a long story. But normally, the gene codes of things on a planet have a natural adaptability to time acceleration. Once the planetary particles start to increase, so will certain things trigger in the DNA of the other life forms, so they can keep up. We would normally work that way, but there have been mutations done. There have been mutations done that have blocked the ability of the silicate matrix to progressively activate like it normally would. It would allow us to normally increase with the planetary pulsation rhythm. What it will create, if we don't do something about it, is an acceleration of time, an acceleration of aging, an acceleration of deterioration of the body matter. We can change this. They are giving us keylontic morphogenetic science, because that is how you bring the silicate matrix back into activation and how you reverse mutate what has been put in and taken out of the gene code by ET manipulations all along the line. That is why, with all of the information that I have been given, what I have focused on in the workshop to come is the basic layout of keylontic science, so you have an understanding of what it is and where you can start to begin using it to make these changes. And it's funny, because time acceleration will affect everybody differently. Everybody here has a different genetic configuration at this point. We have portions of the silicate matrix, some have all of it, some have not all of it, some have it all but not activated. It will affect each one of us in a different way, but it has the potential to affect some people in a very bad way. Because what's going to happen is, in the time acceleration, it's created specifically because there is something called a stellar bridge that runs down through some of the higher, well, I call them higher because they're of higher dimensional frequency, some of the galaxies that we've identified. It's a bridge of energy that spirals down, only at certain times, and the spirals alone. It spirals down to our system, through the sun, through the earth. Now, I got 5 minutes, I have to do this real fast. Okay, anyway. The stellar bridge is a bridge, an electromagnetic frequency bridge that brings new scalar waves, new sound light spectra, and new electromagnetic waves into the Earth's electromagnetic fields. This is what causes the time acceleration. This begins in the year 2000 with the opening of the 4th vortex. There are 7 vortexes here that will open to receive these frequencies. They're known as the 7 seals in the Bible. 3 of them are already opened, and so far so good. We haven't had any major planetary cataclysms. We are approaching the opening of the 7 seals. We are approaching time acceleration. And we have, between now and 2017, to learn what that means and to prepare ourselves for it and to not freak out about it. And meanwhile, we have to deal with the Illuminati who are trying to keep us as stupid as possible. So we don't learn about this, because they don't really care if we have accelerated disease, aging, the whole bit. There's only certain gene codes they want to keep around anyway. They want to create here a one world order. And we're not going to let them. The guardian groups aren't going to let them. But it takes the people here too to start waking up. And that's what our information is about. That's what our books are about. That's why I am coming out publicly with the information. And I have like probably 2 minutes left here, so I have to go really fast. I have a workshop in the Chelsea room at 12 o'clock, just following this, and it is on keylontic morphogenetic science. You'll learn the structure of identity and where that plugs into your DNA, and basically the processes we need to become familiar with to prepare for these things that I've spoken about. We also have a seminar, a 3-day seminar, coming up on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of May at the Source of Life Center, and that's the address of that.
Flyers in the back.
Okay. I also have been trained to give DNA analysis. There are certain techniques you can use to find out where you're at, to have it evaluated. You don't need microscopes for this, but you need to be able to use part of your own silicate matrix and the perceptions it gives you. I've been trained to do it, and for those who are interested, I do give private consultations at this point.
Run out of time and they kick me out of the room, and they're very tight on deadlines here, so I already heard. All right, this workshop is a small part of the information that we have to offer. This material is not covered in the books yet. It is an introduction to keylontic morphogenetic science. Morphogenetic refers to the blueprint of matter, the blueprint that form your body and your consciousness while you're manifested in a dimensional system. Within keylontic science, you will also learn how you fit into the universe, where your morphogenetic structure plugs into the cosmic morphogenetic structure. Through that, I hope to get across to you, first of all, where science and spirituality actually come together. Because the DNA and spiritual evolution are totally intertwined with each other. And to explain the models that are presented through keylontic science, I hope to be able to convey that to you, so you begin to have a new understanding of what it means to evolve, biologically and spiritually. They're intertwined. And the process is called dimensional ascension. That is the process of evolution, whether you choose to believe it or not. And this particular workshop is going to cover a bit of that process, how it fits into your body and your consciousness, and the different levels of your consciousness. This material is important because when you begin to understand your parts, you can begin to protect your parts from manipulation from sources such as the Illuminati, who have multidimensional access and can do things through your own bioenergetic field to impulse you to do what they want. You can learn to protect yourself quite easily once you understand your parts and what to do with them. And the parts I'm referring to are the subtle energy bodies that are part of your anatomy.
Who is the Illuminati?
Okay, the Illuminati is a very large group. Originally it started in the Orion star system. It's many extraterrestrials, also metaterrestrials, which are consciousness that are beyond physical body manifestation, but they're also the ones who run the secret government here, and they have for eons. So it is a force that works for the non-evolution of our species, where the guardian races I refer to are those that work for the continued evolution and higher evolution of our species. Okay, well, that was covered a bit in the lecture over there. Okay. All right, so let's try to get moving here. Now, keylontic science. The point of union between the scientific and the spiritual perspective. It is basically, and this is the first definition they gave me for it, what is keylontic science? It's the science of light, sound, the subconscious symbol codes, and the base codes of matter. Now, light and sound I've heard of, but this code thing I had no idea what they were talking about. As we progress through this, we'll learn about things called particle, particle, and particum, which are ultra-microparticles that form morphogenetic fields. We'll learn what codes are that are formed, groups of crystalline structures that are formed from these ultra-microparticles that make up the blueprints for every one of us and every matter form in the room. So when they're talking about codes, they're talking about crystalline morphogenetic codes that set the blueprint for matter manifestation and also your consciousness. It's important to understand where your body and your DNA plug into things, because the consciousness you will be able to hold in your body is completely determined by the level of activation you have in your DNA. Your DNA will block integration of higher parts of your identity unless it is activated. And this is where spiritual reality and biological reality become one. As you work with spiritual integration, what you're really doing is activating dormant codes of the silicate matrix gene code in the DNA. They're intimately intertwined. All right. The first thing we'll discuss basically the topics I would like to cover, and if we're lucky, I can go over that quickly. I know I have to talk fast, but I'm sorry. I would love to pace this much slower, but we'll never get to the end of what I would like to expose you to if I do that here. The seminar at the end of the month, we will do that. But for now, if you feel lost, don't worry about it. I'm trying to go for something called field saturation. I will throw as much information to you as I can, and you'll just grab the pieces that you can grab, and don't worry about the ones you didn't get, because they do fit together, and there's other things you can do to learn more about where they fit together. So if I'm going over your head sometimes, don't worry about it. The packages do help, because you can follow what I've been talking about, because it's in written form. So I'm just going to kind of blast it at you, and I'm sorry, I'm not always a typer, and don't always. It's okay. We're going to cover evolutionary context, the anatomy of cosmic structure. So first we have to know the bigger picture that we fit in. Then we're going to go into evolutionary substance. And this is morphogenetic field. They're the crystalline matrices, crystalline blueprints that everything in the cosmos is built upon. The dimensional structures themselves, the frequency bands that form the dimensional structures, are composed of crystalline matrices. And if you would think about what they would look like, just picture, imagine a crystal cluster. You know how all those little crystal facets are all together like a quartz cluster? Imagine an infinitely immense one of those. But they are not just pieces of rock. They are actually energy units that are units of consciousness. So we're dealing with morphogenetic fields that are also fields of consciousness. They're not separate. Energy is conscious. Our scientists haven't quite figured that out yet, but every unit of energy possesses consciousness. All right. Then we're going to get into, this is the most important, so I may run through the other spots. We're going to get your cosmic connection, where the structure of your multidimensional morphogenetic field plugs in to the greater structure, and it does plug in. And this is where you get your divine connection. This is where you get a literal energetic conduit and direct connection to what is considered God, the central source of creation. So in understanding your parts, it'll help you to understand that relationship and to begin to really embrace it and work with it. Okay, we'll get into evolutionary mechanics a bit, which I'll cover more heavily in seminars because it is kind of complex. It is the science of dimensional ascension, of working with your DNA and your consciousness, integrating your higher consciousness in order to create a shift of dimension for the physical body itself. We are in, as I explained in the lecture, and some people weren't there, we are in harmonic universe 1. Harmonic universe 1, and I'll get into this a little bit more too, is composed of dimensions 1, 2, and 3. Our next step of evolution is going into harmonic universe 2 and the type of matter forms that the body will take in that universe. That's dimensions 4, 5, and 6. The science of dimensional ascension is the literal scientific processes and mechanics by which that transition from one harmonic universe into another, which is more highly evolved, occurs. It's a process we're all involved in unconsciously. It's time to start becoming conscious, and that's why they're given the information. Those of higher evolution who have done this, they understand it. They're reaching back in time so we can understand too. And the last thing I will cover is some things we can do to begin preparing our bodies for what comes down to an increase in frequency. We have to raise the frequency of our bodies. Now, what is body frequency? It's basically the rate at which your particles, your molecules, pulsate. And it's done by bringing in higher frequencies, which vibrate faster. You're raising your vibrations, you're raising frequency. And there are certain things that will help this process. There are certain very technical keylontic science things that can't be taught here because it just takes too long to teach them. There's 6 courses that go with this that I'm being given. But for now, there are little things that we can do to begin the process and prepare for DNA activation. And that's what we'll cover. Okay, now, first things first. Skip over some of the mylars here, so if you're following along, I skipped over that one. Okay? Because I'm trying to save time and go right to the starter. getting into the anatomy of cosmic structure on this one. The first thing to understand is when I talk about harmonic universes, I'm talking about a literal structure, a blueprint that the universe and the cosmos are structured upon. There's something called the time matrix, and that's inside of something called the energy matrix. And that is within a source called the Unitime by the Guardian groups. You can call it anything you want. It's really the nameless place. It is the Godhead, the God source, whatever you want to call it, that central point of creation. It is not somewhere we go to. We are taking place within it. Now, there are levels within that matrix of energy. The first one is the energy matrix. It is not a dimensionalized system. It is a level of pure, endless consciousness that has certain configurations. We don't need to worry about that because we're still in dimensionalized reality systems here, and there's a lot to go between here and the energy matrix before we completely become at one with the whole of